This also means that the tribulation will not end and cannot go a single day beyond its predetermined duration. So, basically, in a sense, meaning, if we have 7 years, 1260 days, the tribulation is not going to go 1261 days. And Rob even alluded to this morning about if God didn't cut it short, I don't think means cut it short, meaning he wanted to go longer. I just think it literally means if God didn't stop it at the point that he decreed, everybody on the earth would be dead. But he numbers it to 1260 days at that point in time for the specific purpose. So Matthew 24:22 agrees with this point as well. The wrath that has been prophesied will be poured out on the Antichrist. This refers to his destruction at the second coming of Jesus Christ in the very last day of the 70th week. Now, let me see something here. Okay. That's kind of a cool little thing. Basically, at this point in time, after the 70 weeks is over, we know that the Antichrist and the false prophet will be thrown into the lake of fire. Satan will not. Satan will be bound in the pit for 1,000 years, like Rob mentioned this morning, which will usher in the 1,000-year reign. So, and again, there is this, like if you have, let's see here. If you have the 70 weeks here, their 70th week, again, Daniel chapter 12 talks about, and I'm just going to make this, I think Rob might expound on this a little bit more. You've got 7 years where it says 1,260 days from the signing to the point of he stands up. There's also going to be 1,260 days. Then at that point in time will be the end of the tribulation. But the thing is it doesn't necessarily say that Christ will come back at that point in time. Because Daniel chapter 12 talks about that there's actually, blessed be those who make it 1,335 days. So you've got this little 75-day period out here. And I think at this point in time, the 75-day period, this is when God's going to purify the temple. Matthew 25 is going to happen. You know about the 10 bridesmaids or 10 virgins, the 10 minas, the sheep and the goats. That has nothing to do with us. It has nothing to do with the church. We've gone out of linear time at this point in time at the rapture. We're in eternity. Matthew 25 is purely the judgments of separating the saved and unsaved on the earth during the 7-year tribulation. We will come back with Christ at some point in time. In this point in time, Rob makes a great point that it's probably going to be a procession or multiple days, because remember Matthew 24 says there will be a sign in the heavens. The sign comes first. I don't know what it is. It could be anything. But there's going to be a sign, and then Christ will then make his way back, which is kind of interesting. I wonder how that happens, because there's some Old Testament prophecies that refer to that he would come from Basra, as he is possibly, during the 70-year period, he is miraculously helping the remnant of Israel that ran to Jordan, or Petra Jordan. Another study altogether. So, but that quick period of time. So, at this point in time, somewhere in the 75-day period, I'm saying is when the Antichrist and its false prophet will then go down here into the lake of fire and be gone forever. All right. So to wrap up, I think this is very cool. A lot of people want to argue that this is like, oh, well, this is the only spot. Where else can we find this in the scriptures that's going to happen? I think this is kind of cool. A truly smart guy that's kind of helped me is a guy named Arnold Fruchtenbaum. He's a Messianic Jew that does a great job of studying this stuff. If you go to his website, ariel.org, you can dive in. There's tons of stuff there. Lots of... Oh, yes. I can write that down. Ariel.org. His name is Arnold Fruchtenbaum. He's a great guy. Another resource that Rob and I use a lot is Grace Through Faith, Jack Kelly. Good, solid Bible teaching. But I think this is kind of cool. This was Arnold Fruchtenbaum. He used this. Isaiah 28, 14 through 22. Check this out. This is very interesting. Therefore, hear the word of the Lord, you scoffers who rule this people in Jerusalem. So this is the leaders talking to those who rule Jerusalem. Will make a covenant and are scoffers not to be taken seriously. You boast, we have entered into a covenant with death. With the grave we have made an agreement. When an overwhelming scourge sweeps by, it cannot touch us, for we have made a lie our refuge and a falsehood our hiding place. It's kind of interesting. Kind of talks about a covenant. These scoffers will go into a covenant to obtain security. Now, it's interesting. I can't believe I almost forgot. Right here, I firmly believe that Psalm 83 talks about the destruction of Damascus that I think we possibly could see. Speaks of annihilation to where nobody will live there again. Just so happens to be where Hezbollah is at. Hezbollah wants to attack Israel. Israel's thinking about defending herself. Psalm 83 talks about this war, or not war, battle that's going to wipe out Damascus. I think that could happen right here before the 70th week. So, and also we have Ezekiel 38 and 39, also that's going to be a battle that I think is the turning point. As God is faced to the nations to pull a people for himself, Ezekiel 39:22 definitely refers to the point of where God says, I will begin to work in my people so that they, in an unmistakable way, that they will know that I am their Lord. And I think at that point in time is when God then turns his face to the Jews. Remember what Rob said this morning? This is about judging the earth for not accepting faith in Christ, and it's also about the Jews who did not accept Christ as well. So the church is pulled out of the way. So at that point in time, God will turn his face back to them. So, overwhelming scourge, however, God declares that this covenant is not made with life, but made with death. So as these battles have been happening right here, Israel feels secure in making a covenant with the Antichrist. And God says, oh, you think you have entered into a covenant with death, with the grave we have made an agreement. But you have made a lie your refuge and a falsehood our hiding place, meaning you're relying on your allegiance with the Antichrist instead of believing in Christ. I think that's the absolute point there. So this is what the sovereign Lord says. See, I lay a stone in Zion, a tested stone, a precious cornerstone for a sure foundation. The one who trusts will never be dismayed. And I think this is purely saying that there will be those in Jerusalem that will not go along with this, but they will then turn their face to the Lord and accept Christ as the Messiah. Remember, Rob says this morning, 3/4 of the Jews will be killed at this point in time. 1/3 of them will, I believe, is the remnant of Israel that will be ushered in as the 12 tribes to inhabit the land of the millennial kingdom. And I think this is talking about that remnant. I will make justice the measuring line and righteousness the plumb line. Hail will sweep away your refuge, the lie, and water will overflow your hiding place. I think this is interesting that the wording in Revelation when the Antichrist pursues the Jews is referring to a flood or overflowing water. Your covenant with death will be annulled. Your agreement with the grave will not stand. When the overwhelming scourge sweeps by, you will be beaten down by it. So it specifically says this covenant that you made with death will be annulled, referring to the middle point of where the Antichrist, who you made the agreement with, will turn against you. So, and you will be beaten down by it because at that point in time, he's going to turn and pursue you. The same guy that made this covenant with your country is going to turn and come after you. So, and then of course this covenant's broken like in Daniel 9:27 that we just saw. As often as it comes, it will carry you away. Morning after morning, day by day and by night, it will sweep through. The understanding of this message will bring sheer terror. The bed is too short to stretch out on, the blanket too narrow to wrap around on. You know, it's kind of funny. You're like, how horrible is that? But has anybody tried to sleep when you're freezing cold and the sheet's too short? It's a horrible situation. But the whole point here is that at this point in time, their lives are going to be extremely uncomfortable because they will be pursued to be killed. So destruction falls on the Jewish people. The Lord will rise up as he did at Mount Perazim. He will rouse himself as in the valley of Gibeon to do his work, his strange work, and perform his task, his alien task. Now stop your mocking of your chains will become heavier. The Lord Almighty has told me of the destruction decreed against the whole land. And I think this is a refer back to the wrath of God is strange because it's going to encompass the whole earth. and which is specifically talking about this. He then comes back as he's talking to the Jews and saying, look, you're doing all this, you're going to be pursued. Well, at that point in time, he's just coming back and saying that this whole 7-year period is going to be God's wrath, which we learn in Revelations chapter 6, when the generals and the leaders of the armies turn and declare, truly this is the wrath of God. And that would be happening in the first half of the tribulation. So this decree of destruction from God will be issued only when the covenant is signed by the leaders of Israel and the Antichrist. So when this is signed, it starts the tribulation, or the 70th week, to conclude. All this is past, this is yet future. When that covenant is signed, it will start everything that we read in Revelation. It will start everything we read in Daniel, in Ezekiel, in Isaiah, in Jeremiah, and everything. And at the conclusion of this, he will conclude all this prophecy that we read about back in the Old Testament. We still have the millennial kingdom, the great white throne and judgment, and then going into eternity. But Daniel 9 specifically lays this out. So this is very important. Study this, understand this, and know this, that this is kind of the timeline from this point in time of God dealing with His people Israel, His church, during the age that we live right now. And then there will be a time when God will deal with Israel again. That's all I've got.